A sense of place is one and the same with a sense of self. Knowing yourself is to know your place in the universe. If you have a block and a hole that you're fitting them into, you need to know the shape of the hole just as much as the shape of the block. You need to know your sense of place out in the world as well as who you are. We're going to go through a bunch of tools that aid in this self-discovery and this self-awareness, which all lead to a sense of self. I'm Colin Hoffman. I am a sociology researcher. I specialize in what I call disparate communication. Disparate communications can be anything between groups, between ideologies, between principles, personally, and even within intrapersonal communication. Intrapersonal or any communications that happen within the self. Have you ever disagreed with yourself? Have you ever wanted to be somewhere different than you are? Have you ever wanted to go somewhere different than somebody planned out for you? Have you ever wanted to get away from something in the past? All of these tools are self-awareness that we're going to go through and questions that we ask ourselves for self-check-ins so that you can get a better sense of self. The metaphor that I like to use is every person is a constellation. A constellation of stars out in space, and each star in your personal constellation is a personal identity expression. You might have political ideology, you might have your gender or your sexuality, you might have your role as a student, a coworker, a citizen, as a son, a husband, a father, a sister, a wife, as a protector, as an athlete, as a thinker, a learner, a doer, as a student. All of these particular roles and identities in our lives are things we can self-discover. So if we have a star out in space that is by itself, not near anything to compare it to measure itself against, this is a stage of self-discovery. In self-discovery, this is where we ask the question, what am I? With these things, when we are alone, and nothing around us to compare to relativistically, am I lonely? Am I independent? Am I red? Am I blue? Am I large? Am I small? When we ask ourselves, what am I in a vacuum, that's where you can start the journey of self-discovery with this simple question. I am political. I am expressive. I am an artist. I am an athlete. I am a thinker. I am a student. I am a worker. Any of those possible things are all points that we might have in our personal identity. But when we don't have anything near us to compare to, we don't quite know what directions there are. Within the stars, we need a point of reference, the North Star. Within our lifetimes, relatively speaking, it will always be north, and therefore we know we are south of that. So when we compare ourselves to something else, another star nearby us, this is a discrete discovery. Discrete simply means on or off or more than, less than. This question we can start asking ourselves, am I more than or less than? Am I more liberal than my parents? Am I more conservative than my coworkers? Am I more open-minded than I want to be? Am I less extroverted than my friends? Once we have some kind of reference point, we can determine between these stars, okay, is that to the right or is it to the left? Is it larger, is it smaller? Is it more red, is it more blue? Any of these things are a discrete discovery of just simply asking ourselves more or less. When we can determine more or less, that is a better sense of self and where we are in the universe. As we get tools, we can start measuring things. We do have the tools now to measure how far stars are apart. We can measure how large something is. We can measure how hot or how blue, how red, how all of these colors, all of these different things to compare different points with which. Rather than the discrete discovery, we now have a spectrum. It's not white, it's not black. It's the infinite shades of gray in between. And that is a deeper sense of self-discovery with any of these points that we're talking about, anything that you value, anything that you want to express in yourself, anything that you want to explore in yourself. This question is how much? How much different am I than my parents? How much more do I have to go until I consider myself educated? How much more can I be on time at work? Or how much am I late? How much of a good friend am I to other people? How much less do I want to make myself vulnerable? All of these questions of how much will be answered within a spectrum. And that's a deeper sense of self. Once we have this sense of direction, you can start determining past and future things as well. If you come across a person going in a direction in life, it's probably because they're coming from somewhere or going towards something. If we see a star going north in the universe, is it because something in the south exploded it that direction? Or is it because something in the north is pulling it that direction? Can it be both? So as you go through life, a lot of times, maybe I'm trying to get away from something, or maybe I'm going towards something. Maybe it's both. All I know is the direction that I'm going. The next question and the next tool for this sense of self is a deterministic discovery. Deterministic means being able to detect a pattern. Just like stars orbit, we can tell at a set time, every 29 and a half days, we see a full moon up in the sky. We can determine how many days it takes us to make one rotation around our sun. This is a question of when. When this happened in my childhood, it caused me to go in this direction. When I meet adversity, when I meet people disagreeing with me, when I have hardship, I react in a way that will usually be predictable. These patterns can be future, present, and past. When I go to the gym, I feel trepidatious about it, I feel self-conscious. Or when I go to the gym, I feel better every time I do. When I get up and start speaking in front of people, do I feel nervous? Do I feel anxious? Do I feel confident? Do I feel expressive? All of those answers will be different and individual to us. And that's how we can start to determine these patterns. When we ask, when? A sense of self. When do I feel confident? When do I feel expressive? When do I feel a sense of safety? When do I feel a sense of solidarity? Each of these personality, identity expressions, big fancy words for all of the little demographics that make us ourselves, are parts of our constellation. Each of us is our own constellation, and some of us will have certain stars that burn much brighter or in different places. We can draw lines between some of them to make this structure of self. Some of them burn so brightly that it shows to other people. We've all met somebody walking a block away. You know exactly how they voted. Political ideology may be a very bright star in their constellation, so bright that it shines out to other people and they want it that way. If you're in a room with somebody that you never have to ask their sexuality or their pronouns, because it is that apparent, it is that expected, it is that loud, and they're letting you know. That star, their personal gender identity or sexuality may be something that is so bright and so dear to them, they want everybody to know. Sometimes those stars might be dimmer. Sometimes those stars might be shooting across the sky and we're just discovering them and it'll leave. Sometimes stars will fade out and die. We may run into people that have no sense of political ideology. I don't care. May I run into some people, I don't care, call me whatever pronouns you want, just as long as you get me on time for dinner. These constellations of ourselves are as unique to ourselves as there are people in the world. The more we know this constellation of ourselves, the more we know what personality identity expressions and the complex ways they move and ways that we can check in with ourselves on asking these questions of, what am I? Am I more or am I less? How much? When? Create a better sense of self that our constellation will find a place to fit into the night sky. Maybe you want to fit in to other constellations around you and share a couple of those ideals, share a couple of the ideas and principles. Maybe you have certain stars that are sequestered in their own sections. You have your own roles, you have your own ways that you express yourself to your family. It may not be the way you express yourself to your coworkers or to your life partners or to strangers. This greater sense of self, once we know how to map ourselves in the world around us, lead to demonstrable and provable life benefits with the people around us. Children, these are studies that have been done, children that come from racially diverse or socioeconomically diverse backgrounds are more willing to play with other kids and especially play with kids that are different than them. In adolescence that come from blended families, either multiracial, multicultural, different religions, children of divorce or remarried families, people that may have adopted siblings, things like that. Teenagers that live a life of that have a wider array to choose from their sense of self. They know, oh, family can mean that. Oh, siblings can mean that. In adulthood, report higher life satisfaction and better worldly predictions, worldly outcomes. Things don't surprise them as much because they know the whole spectrum of how the world might go, what family might mean. In adults, immigrants that have a home culture in a novel country, in a country not of their own, will have higher life expectancy, higher self-awareness, and higher worldly predictions when they embrace both cultures. So all of these things from childhood through adolescence through adulthood, we can do these self-check-ins rather than just asking other people, how are you doing today? How was that hard thing you were going through last week? As a passing thing, we can also ask ourselves with these tools and these questions for self-awareness as we go through. When things may be changing, and we might be in a low place, sometimes we'll ask them, what am I doing? How much longer until it's over? When will I be happy? Those questions can be asked when things are changing. They can be asked when things are going according to plan. They can be asked when things are going well, especially when things are going well in your life. Those are fantastic times to ask yourselves these questions for the sense of self. So a sense of place in the universe truly is as equal to a sense of self. Thank you.